Hey guys, tonight we begin with the wonderful disaster known as being a teenager in ancient Rome. A time when adulthood started at 13 and fashion was just fabric draped with confidence. So before you get comfortable, take a moment, like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Your life as a Roman teenager begins with the one thing Rome excels at: noise so loud it could wake the dead. Before the sun even stretches its golden little fingers over the horizon, the city has already declared war on your sleep. The first sound, your neighbor yelling at his mule. Why? Because the mule has opinions, and it's expressing them loudly on cobblestone at dawn. You haven't even opened your eyes yet, and you already know today is going to be a Roman kind of day. Chaotic and slightly disappointing. If you're wealthy, you wake in a villa so beautiful that even the gods would envy your mosaic floors. But don't get too comfortable. That gorgeous open-air design also means your house is basically a wind tunnel with expensive decor. Your servant gently taps your shoulder awake with the energy of someone who gave up on their dreams long ago. They whisper, "Young master, it is time." But what they really mean is, please wake up before the rooster starts screaming again. If you're poor, your sleeping situation is more flexible. You share a room with enough siblings to populate a small legion. The morning begins. You open your eyes to the muted glow of morning sunlight filtering through the thin linen curtain that hangs loosely across the small window of your family's insula. A multi-story apartment building typical of Rome in the 1st century CE. The room is still cool from the night, though the air is already tinged with the distant smell of baking bread and damp stone. You lie on a simple straw mattress, its uneven texture pressing lightly into your back, and listen for a moment to the quiet creaking of the wooden beams above. Someone on the floor above you has already begun to stir. Life in an insula is never completely silent. You can hear muffled footsteps, a pot being moved, a cough, the faint clatter of pottery somewhere down the hall. The soundscape of ordinary Roman life surrounds you, the constant chorus of a city of more than 1 million souls. You sit up slowly, pulling your woolen tunic over your shoulders, the fabric rough but familiar against your skin. You are 14 years old, considered almost an adult in Rome, and your responsibilities grow heavier with every season. Your father works as a leather worker, a corrierius, repairing sandals, belts, and armor straps for soldiers who pass through the city. Your mother sells figs and olives at a market stall when the weather is fair enough. You, like most boys of your age and background, stand somewhere between student and laborer, between childhood and obligation. The room you share with your parents and younger siblings is small, perhaps only 4 meters across. You know every mark on its plaster walls. The smell inside is a blend of olive oil, smoke, wool, sweat, and the faint sourness that lingers when too many people inhabit too little space. This is your world, ordinary but secure in its familiarity. You step lightly around your sleeping sister and move toward the clay basin resting near the doorway. The water inside is cold against your hands, and you splash it on your face to shake off the remnants of sleep. There is no soap. Romans typically clean with oil and a metal scraper, but water serves well enough on an ordinary morning. Outside, The narrow staircase descends sharply, its steps uneven from years of countless feet. You make your way down carefully. The insula buildings are notorious for poor construction, often collapsing or catching fire without warning. You are reminded of this fact every time you step onto the unstable wooden landing. The street below is already busy. A cart rolls past, pulled by a tired-looking donkey whose hooves clatter loudly on the stone paving. A woman calls out the price of fresh peaches. Two boys not much older than you hurry past carrying bundles of firewood, shouting over their shoulders at one another. Somewhere, a vendor bangs metal pans together to gather attention, and nearby a small flock of chickens scatters underfoot. In the distance, you can see the towering shape of the Capitoline Hill rising above the jumble of rooftops, a constant reminder of the city's pride and power. The temples, the Senate House, the Forum, monuments carved in marble, symbols of the empire that stretches farther than most can imagine. You have never traveled more than 5 miles from this place, but you live at the heart of a world that others speak of in mythic scale. Your mother hands you a small piece of bread, roughly baked and still warm. It is coarse and gritty with bits of bran and ground stone, an ordinary Roman loaf. You eat slowly, chewing the dense crust. Food is never taken for granted. Grain shortages can turn peaceful streets into chaos in a single day. As you eat, you think about the day ahead. In the mornings, if work allows, you attend lessons with a ludi magister, a teacher hired by several families in your neighborhood. Not all children in Rome study reading and writing. Many your age already work full-time. But your father believes education may offer you a future beyond the workshop or the army. Your school is not a building, but a shaded corner beneath a colonnade. There, seated on wooden stools, you and a handful of others learn to read Latin and Greek, to copy letters onto wax tablets using a stylus, and to recite moral sayings from the poet Horace. The lessons are simple, repetitive, and delivered in a calm but stern tone. Your teacher believes discipline is the foundation of honor. By the time you arrive at the colonnade, the sun is higher, and the marble beneath your feet has begun to warm. You greet your teacher with a respectful nod. He is an older man with a lined face and a short beard, dressed in a worn but clean tunic. His voice is steady and careful as he begins the morning's recitation. You hold the wooden tablet on your lap, smoothing the beeswax surface with a flat scraper, ready to write the words he dictates. The stylus presses into the wax, leaving sharp black lines. The repetition is monotonous, and your hand cramps slightly as you work. Around you, the city hums. A group of soldiers passes by, their armor clinking rhythmically. A slave unloads jars of wine from a cart nearby. A young mother with a crying child stops to rest in the shade, rocking gently back and forth. Life continues without pause. You wonder, not for the first time, what your life will become. Will you inherit your father's trade, spending your days shaping leather in the cramped workshop? Will you join the legions and march to the edge of the world? Or might education someday open doors you cannot yet see? Evening is still many hours away, but already you feel the weight of decisions forming around you. In Rome, adulthood arrives quickly. A boy becomes a man not through ceremony, but through necessity. As the lesson ends, your teacher places a hand on your shoulder. It is a rare gesture of warmth. Knowledge is not a gift, he murmurs quietly, but a burden that shapes the future. Carry it well. You nod, unsure whether he means to encourage you or warn you. You leave the colonnade and begin your walk toward your father's workshop, the midday heat settling heavily around you. The sun is bright now, reflecting harshly off stone walls and polished bronze fittings. You feel sweat begin to form at the back of your neck. The smell of hot dust, animal dung, and fish from the nearby market mixes thickly in the air. The workshop is located along a narrow street lined with stalls selling secondhand clothing and repaired household items. Inside, the air is thick with the scent of tanning chemicals, pungent mixtures of urine, lime, and bark. You wrinkle your nose, though the smell has become familiar over time. Your father glances up from his workbench as you enter. He is strong but lean, his hands calloused and stained from years of labor. He gives you a small nod of acknowledgement. Words are not needed. You know your tasks: sorting scraps, trimming leather straps, sweeping shavings from the floor. You work quietly, the rhythmic motion almost meditative. Outside the doorway, voices rise and fall, and occasionally a customer steps inside, examining belts or sandals with care. Your father speaks little, but his presence is steady and grounding. Hours pass, and your arms grow tired. Work like this is not glorious, not heroic, not the kind of story poets sing. Yet it is work that sustains the empire. Thousands of unnamed hands shaping the quiet backbone of Rome. Later, as the sun begins to dip and the temperature eases, you step outside to stretch. A warm breeze carries the sound of distant cheering. The games are underway at the amphitheater, though you have never attended them. The thought of the roaring crowd, the chaos, the blood, these feel far removed from your life here, woven from quieter moments. You look up again at the Capitol and the sprawling rooftops around you. You wonder what tomorrow will bring. You wonder how many unseen lives, like yours, build the weight of history grain by grain. You wonder if any of it will matter. And as you stand there in the dimming light, a single question settles quietly into your thoughts, unresolved and lingering. Is there a path in Rome for someone like you? Or will the city swallow you before you ever find it? The weight of expectations. The next morning begins much like the last. You wake before sunrise, stirred by the soft shuffle of movement above you, the creaking wood beams of the insula transferring every vibration down through the structure like a long spine. Someone drops a clay pot on the floor above, and it shatters with a crisp crack. A voice curses quietly, the sound echoing through thin walls. The building always feels like it is in a perpetual state of trembling, never truly still. It is not unusual for an insula to collapse without warning, burying residents in rubble. You have heard stories of families crushed in their sleep. The fear lingers constantly in the background like the low rumble of the city itself. You rise from your straw mattress and stretch, wiping dust from your tunic. Your siblings shift beneath blankets, too early yet for their day to begin. Your mother, however, is already awake, heating a small pot of barley porridge over a shallow clay brazier. The fuel is scarce: olive pits, scraps of wood, and dried dung when necessary. Rome consumes mountains of timber each year to feed its countless furnaces and construction projects, leaving only scraps for households like yours. She greets you with a tired smile. Her hands are rough and her eyes slightly swollen with fatigue. She has been up since well before dawn, preparing to carry her basket to the market near the forum. The distance is not great, only a short walk down crowded streets, but the weight of the goods and the long hours are draining. Many women in Rome work long before sunrise and long after sunset, especially those without slaves to help them. Your father is still asleep on the opposite side of the room, his breathing deep and uneven. The leather tanning chemicals irritate his lungs. Sometimes he wakes coughing violently, and you worry one day he will not catch his breath. Still, he insists he is strong, and you do not question him. In Rome, strength is expectation, not choice. You eat a small bowl of porridge slowly, aware that beyond this meal, the day will likely include little more than bread and water. The grain supply in Rome is always precarious, and though the emperor distributes free grain to eligible citizens, the welfare system called the Annona, the supply is not always reliable. You have seen hungry crowds gathered at the docks, anxious and angry when a shipment is delayed. Bread is life in Rome, and any threat to it grows dangerous quickly. Once you finish, you step outside. The sky is still dim and shadowed, the sun barely visible behind the rooftops. The streets fill early in Rome. Porters carrying water from public fountains, slaves sweeping dust from storefronts, farmers driving carts loaded with vegetables. Life does not wait. Today, your responsibilities are slightly different. You are not expected at the workshop until late morning. Instead, you are scheduled to help your mother carry her goods to the market. You lift the heavy woven basket, its weight pressing down on your shoulder. Inside are small bundles of herbs, olives preserved in brine, and a handful of figs waiting to ripen fully in the heat of the day. As you walk, your mother speaks quietly, mindful of the crowd. "Your father wants to speak with you tonight," she says. "He believes the time is near to decide your path." You swallow slowly, unsure how to respond. You knew the moment was coming, yet hearing it aloud tightens your chest. In Rome, men choose their life direction early. Some families send their sons to apprenticeships at 10 or 11. Others send them into the army at 16 or 17, unless they are wealthy and pursue a public career through education. Your family, like most, cannot afford choice. Leatherwork is skilled trade, but earning enough to support 5 mouths is never easy. Your father believes that one day his workshop may become yours. The thought is both comforting and suffocating. Your mother does not ask what you think. In Rome, desires are secondary to duty. As you reach the forum marketplace, the sounds swell, voices arguing, merchants calling out prices, the rhythmic striking of metal from a nearby smith. The smell of fresh fish mixes unpleasantly with sweat, dust, and sweet fruit. You help your mother arrange her goods on a small wooden cart, brushing dust from the figs. Nearby, a wealthy matron steps delicately from a litter carried by 4 slaves, her dress bright and clean, her hair piled high with jeweled pins. A small group of people bow their heads politely as she passes. The contrast between her world and yours is striking. 2 versions of Rome separated by status, yet standing only a few steps apart. Your mother begins selling, her voice steady and calm. You assist her, counting small coins, asses made of copper and heavier sestertii of brass. You hold them carefully in your hand, aware of their value. A single denarius may feed your family for days. Wealth moves through the fingers of others with ease. Yet for you, each coin feels like a stone. The hours pass slowly. Sunlight creeps higher, baking the stone beneath your feet. You sip water sparingly from a clay cup, feeling the dryness gather in your throat. Rome has aqueducts, the engineering marvels that bring water from the great hills miles away, but clean water is not guaranteed. Public fountains are crowded and sometimes contaminated. Wealthy homes have private piped water, but most people carry clay jars daily. While you wait, you watch the people around you. Rome is a city of extraordinary diversity. Merchants from Syria speak in rapid tones. A group of Jewish scholars pass by in deep conversation. Greek slaves accompany a tutor, and several wealthy boys who appear bored and restless. A tall man from Nubia leads a pair of donkeys loaded with baskets. Every accent, every skin tone, every scent of foreign spices belongs to the empire. You wonder how far Rome truly extends. Beyond deserts, mountains, seas, and beyond any horizon you have ever seen. Around midday, your friend Marcus appears, weaving through the crowd with energetic impatience. He is the son of a butcher and works in his father's stall near the river. His hands smell of raw meat and salt, but his smile is bright and easy. "You work too much," he says, grabbing your shoulder. "Come to the Tiber tonight. We're swimming with the others." You hesitate. Leisure feels like a luxury. But Marcus insists, and your mother nods quietly. "Go," she says. "You are young only once. Work will wait." Marcus grins triumphantly and rushes on to complete his errands. You watch him disappear into the crowd and feel a flicker of envy. He carries his responsibilities lightly, as if the weight of the world has not yet found him. In Rome, friendship is a curious balance. Loyalty is sacred, but circumstances may change everything. Many boys join the army, never to return. Others die young from illness, accidents, or riots. You do not speak of these fears aloud. Later, after helping your mother pack up what little remains, you return home briefly before going to the workshop. Your father is waiting at the door, sharpening a knife slowly, the metal scraping softly against a whetstone. The sound is steady and rhythmic, filling the room like a heartbeat. "Walk with me," he says simply. You follow him down the stairs and onto the street. You walk in silence for several minutes, weaving between carts and crowds until you reach a small public shrine nestled into a stone wall. A statue of household spirits, the Lares, stands beneath a simple roof, decorated with faded ribbons and small clay figures. Someone has left offerings, a few coins, a bit of bread, a flower wilting in the heat. Your father stops and turns to you. "You are no longer a child," he says. "Soon, the time will come to choose your path. I need to know what you want." The question hangs heavy. You look down at your hands already calloused from work. "I don't know," you say honestly. Your father nods once, not surprised. "Few do at your age. But the city will not wait forever. If you wish to stay with me and learn the trade, I will teach you. If you wish to join the army, I can speak to a recruiter. If you believe education will lead to something better, it is possible, though uncertain." He pauses. "Whatever path you choose, it must support the family. We depend on one another. Responsibility presses on you like the weight of the entire insula." You feel the city's noise swell around you. Carts rumbling, voices echoing, the distant cry of a hawker selling cooked chickpeas. Life never stops to grant time for reflection. Your father places a hand firmly on your shoulder. "This world is vast," he says quietly. "But for most people, Rome decides what we become. Decides soon, before the city decides for you." He releases you and begins walking back toward the workshop without another word. You stand still, rooted in place, staring at the small shrine. For the first time, you feel truly aware of the narrowness of your world. You live in a city of marble temples and towering amphitheaters, but your life exists mostly in cramped rooms and dusty alleys. History celebrates emperors, generals, philosophers, but never boys like you. Yet it is the hands of boys like you that build the roads, the weapons, the bread, the sandals that carry Rome forward. Still, a quiet question begins to form. A question that unsettles you and refuses to fade. If your life is shaped only by duty and survival, where does hope fit? Where do dreams belong? As you stand there, sunlight fading slowly toward evening, you realize that tomorrow may bring the moment your decision can no longer wait. And you wonder, with a deep uncertainty, what if the path you choose changes everything, not only for you, but for those you love, the shape of a future? The evening of that same day arrives with a warm stillness that settles heavily over the city. The air hangs thick and motionless, heavy with the scent of dust and baked clay. From the window of your insula, you can see the last orange glow of sunset spilling across the rooftops, catching briefly on the bronze eagles mounted on distant temple facades before fading into deep shadow. Lamps are beginning to be lit across the city, small flames flickering like scattered stars. Your younger siblings sit near the small brazier, whispering to each other and playing quietly with a rag doll sewn together from scraps of cloth. Your mother prepares a simple meal, boiled lentils flavored with herbs and a small piece of salted fish. The sound of the wooden spoon scraping against the pot is steady and repetitive, almost hypnotic. Your father sits silently beside her, his hands resting heavily in his lap. You sense the weight of the unspoken conversation lingering between you, waiting to be confronted. But tonight, you are not ready. The choice sits inside you like a stone, solid and unmoving, demanding to be acknowledged. After dinner, you slip quietly out of the building and make your way toward the river, as you promised Marcus earlier. The evening air is cooler now, carrying the faint smell of the Tiber, mud, algae, and the distant hint of sewage from the open drains. The river is never entirely clean, yet it remains the gathering place of many youths after long days of labor. You find Marcus sitting on a large rock near the bank, tossing small stones into the water. Each stone skips once or twice before sinking into the dark current. A few other boys from your neighborhood are nearby, splashing in the shallows or arguing loudly about chariot teams, the reds, the blues, the greens, the whites. In Rome, support for a racing faction can feel as serious as politics or religion. Marcus turns when he hears you approach and grins broadly. "There you are," he says. "For a moment, I thought your father had chained you to the workshop." You sit beside him, watching the water ripple under the soft glow of the moon. You can hear faint cheering in the distance, a crowd gathered somewhere for evening entertainment, perhaps street performers or late gladiatorial exhibitions. Tomorrow I have to decide, you say quietly. Marcus nods, but does not look surprised. He picks up another stone and rolls it between his fingers. It's the same for all of us, he says. My father wants me to take more responsibility in the stall. He says if I work harder, one day the butcher's shop will be mine. But I don't know if that is what I want. You turn toward him, surprised. Marcus is always so certain, so free from worry. What do you want, you ask? He hesitates, staring out over the water. I don't know, he admits. Sometimes I imagine joining the legions, seeing places beyond Rome, fighting, maybe earning land someday. People say a soldier can return home a different man, make something of himself. But I've seen soldiers come back broken, too. Missing limbs, missing hope. You listen quietly, the seriousness of his tone unusual. For the first time, you realize you are not alone in the uncertainty that hangs over your future. A group of boys shout nearby, urging each other to race across the river. Their laughter fills the quiet space between you. Life moves forward with or without certainty. Marcus tosses the stone he has been holding and turns back to you. What does your father want you to do? He wants me to decide, you say? But I think he hopes I will stay and learn the trade. And what do you want? You look down at your hands shaped already by labor, by routine, by expectation. You imagine years spent breathing the sharp, acidic fumes of tanning chemicals. You imagine the weight of responsibility growing heavier each year. You imagine loyalty and duty, but you also imagine something else, some faint and distant possibility beyond the crowded streets and dim rooms of the insula. I'm not sure, you say again, but sometimes I wonder what might exist beyond Rome, beyond the walls, beyond everything I know. Marcus smiles faintly. Maybe you and I are not as different as I thought. For a moment, neither of you speaks. You watch the water flow, relentless and uncaring. At the edge of your vision, torches flicker along the riverbank, marking the way home. Eventually, Marcus stands and stretches. Whatever you choose, he says, it will not define everything. Life changes more than we expect. Nothing stays the same forever. Not Rome, not the Empire, not us. His words linger long after he walks away. The next morning arrives quiet and slow, the city wrapped in a heavy haze. You wake before dawn again, unable to sleep. The streets outside are eerily calm. No vendors yet, no carts clattering, no animals calling out. Rome feels suspended, as if holding its breath. You step outside and begin walking with no clear destination, simply moving through the familiar maze of streets. The stones beneath your feet are cool and slick with morning dew. As you pass, you see shopkeepers preparing their stalls, a priest sweeping the steps of a temple, a small child chasing a stray cat. You find yourself standing in front of the Forum, its grand marble columns glowing softly in the early light. You have walked past this place countless times, yet it always feels imposing, an arena of power far removed from ordinary life. Here, senators debate the future of the empire, magistrates argue over laws, generals display victory spoils. The voices that shape Rome speak here. You walk closer, letting your fingers trace the cold, smooth surface of a column. You imagine the countless hands that have touched it before yours. Slaves, merchants, soldiers, priests, emperors. Lives forgotten. Names erased. In that moment, You realize how many lives have passed quietly through history. Millions of ordinary people whose stories were never written. People who worked hard, who loved, who feared, who dreamed. People like you. You breathe deeply and step back, watching the sunrise paint the sky pink and gold. The sound of footsteps echoes behind you. You turn to see your father standing there, watching you silently. "You left early," he says. "I couldn't sleep." Your father nods, understanding more than you expect. He moves closer, his gaze shifting toward the Forum. "When I was your age," he says quietly, "I wanted to be a soldier. I wanted to see the world, to escape the narrow streets and the smell of the workshop. I thought the legions would give me glory. I even planned to enlist. But on the day I was to leave, your grandfather fell ill. Suddenly, everything changed. I stayed because I was needed." He pauses, "And sometimes I wonder what might have been if I had gone." You look at him, startled. "You never told me that." He smiles faintly. "Because it would not change anything. I made the right choice. But I want you to understand that every decision carries both loss and possibility. There is no perfect path." He puts a hand on your shoulder. "Whatever you choose, I will support you. But choose with courage, not fear." The sun rises higher, casting long shadows across the Forum. You feel something inside you shift, not certainty, but clarity. Your future is not yet written. It will not be easy, but it will be yours. You turn slowly toward your father. "I want to continue my studies," you say. "At least for now. I want to learn more. I want to see what possibilities education may offer." Your father studies your face, searching for hesitation. Finding none, he nods slowly. "Then we will find a way." He clasps your shoulder firmly, not restraint, but support. And as you stand together, you realize that this simple decision, small and quiet, may shape everything that follows. Perhaps you will become a scribe, perhaps a teacher, perhaps, one day, someone whose voice is heard. Or perhaps you will remain exactly as you are, an ordinary Roman boy living an ordinary Roman life. But even ordinary lives build history, word by word, choice by choice, breath by breath. You look once more at the vast expanse of the city spread before you. The temples, the workshops, the crowded streets, the rising towers of the Forum, the endless movement of people. Rome feels immense, overwhelming, unstoppable, the quiet echo of ordinary lives. The days following your decision unfold with a strange stillness, as though time itself is pausing to acknowledge the quiet turning point in your life. Nothing dramatic changes, not at first. The city still wakes before dawn. The markets still open with their familiar chorus of voices. The streets still pulse with the ceaseless movement of carts, sandals, and restless crowds. Yet within you, something has shifted, a small but unmistakable current of direction that was not there before. Your mornings now begin earlier. You rise before the sun, washing your face at the clay basin, smoothing your tunic, and slipping quietly out of the insula while your siblings still sleep. You walk through the still cool streets, past shuttered shops and empty stalls, heading toward the colonnade where your lessons take place. The marble stones beneath your feet glisten faintly with morning dew, and the air carries the faint scent of smoke from the night's extinguished braziers. When you arrive, the Ludi Magister is already there, arranging scrolls and tablets with deliberate care. He greets you with a small nod. a gesture that feels more significant now that you have chosen this path consciously. You take your place beside the others, smoothing the wax surface of your tablet, preparing to copy sentences in careful strokes. The lessons are slow and repetitive, recitations of maxims from Seneca, copying passages from Virgil, and chanting verb forms aloud in monotone rhythm. You practice forming letters over and over until your hand aches. A, B, C, D, again and again, each line nearly indistinguishable from the one before. It is tedious, boring, and entirely ordinary, yet it feels like progress. You listen to the crisp tapping of metal styluses scraping across wax. You feel the weight of the wooden tablet on your lap, solid and grounding. You hear the steady voice of your teacher guiding the rhythm of recitation, his tone unchanging and calm. The world narrows, and the endless chaos of Rome dissolves into a small circle of focus and routine. It occurs to you that learning requires the same discipline as labor, the same patience, the same endurance, the same quiet persistence. The work is simply different. Your father was right. Knowledge is a burden, but perhaps it is also a key. In the afternoons, you still return to the workshop, trimming leather straps and sweeping shavings from the floor. The sharp smell of tanning vats still clings to your clothing. The air remains heavy with fumes that sting your eyes and throat. Yet, even this work feels different now. Less like a trap, more like a foundation upon which something else might be built. Your father watches you closely, measuring your progress with a quiet pride that he rarely expresses aloud. He never asks if you regret your choice. Instead, he gives you space to grow into it. His trust settles around you like a cloak, light but protective. One evening, after finishing the day's tasks, he holds out a small object, a freshly cut strip of smooth leather, its surface polished and straight. "This," he says, "is yours. Your first finished piece." You run your fingers over the leather carefully, appreciating the texture. It is ordinary, yet meaningful, proof that even small, imperfect beginnings matter. Your father rests a hand on your shoulder. "A man does not become himself all at once," he says. "He becomes himself slowly, decision by decision, effort by effort, day after day." You nod, absorbing the weight of his words. That night, you lie awake on your straw mattress, listening to the steady breathing of your family. The insula creaks and groans around you, the familiar symphony of compressed lives. A distant dog barks. A man shouts drunkenly somewhere down the street. A cart rumbles past, wheels rattling on stone. Rome never truly sleeps. You stare at the ceiling and consider the path unfolding before you. Not one paved with glory, but with steady steps and quiet persistence. You imagine a future in which you can read more than letters, more than sentences, perhaps history, or law, or philosophy. You imagine walking through the forum not as an observer, but as someone whose words carry weight, whose thoughts matter. It is a small hope, but it is yours. Weeks pass. The weather turns warmer. The smell of the Tiber grows thicker in the air, and the city grows more restless. Grain ships arrive late, and people gather anxiously near the docks. Whispers of shortages spread. You see tension rising in the market, the tightening of shoulders, the sharpness in voices, the way hands grip loaves of bread with white knuckles. Rome is a city built on bread, and every stone trembles when hunger threatens. One morning, as you walk toward the colonnade, you see a line of men gathered near the temple steps. Men in worn tunics, faces drawn tight with worry, waiting to hear news of the grain distribution. A few women clutch baskets protectively. A group of soldiers stands nearby, watching carefully, hands resting lightly on spear shafts. You feel your chest tighten. You know how fragile stability can be. Your mother has been coming home with fewer coins each day. Your father has been working later into the night, the candlelight flickering across his tired face. The lentils in your bowl grow thinner. The bread grows smaller and harder. Life narrows subtly, but perceptibly. One evening, after supper, your father sits with you and your mother quietly, staring into the dying glow of the brazier. Hard times come and go, he says. Rome survives because its people endure. Your mother nods, her face calm but shadowed with fatigue. And we must endure with it. You understand the message. Every choice carries risk. Education may offer opportunities, but it does not guarantee survival. Nothing in Rome is guaranteed. Yet you do not regret the path you chose. One morning, your teacher assigns a writing exercise. You are to write a short passage describing what you believe gives strength to the empire. Not the armies, not the emperors, not the marble monuments, but something quieter and less visible. You sit beneath the colonnade, stylus poised above the tablet, staring at the blank expanse of wax. Around you, the sounds of the city rise, the clatter of tools, the rumble of carts, the shouting of merchants, the chatter of children, the distant metallic clang of blacksmiths. You feel the pulse of Rome beneath your feet, the heartbeat of millions of ordinary lives moving in relentless rhythm. Slowly, deliberately, you write. The strength of Rome is not in its glory, but in the hands of its people. In the baker who rises before dawn. In the mother who carries her basket to market each day. In the apprentice who learns slowly and works silently. In those who build without recognition and labor without praise. Rome is carried by those whose names will never be remembered. Before the sun rises, you wake long before dawn, when the streets of Rome are still cloaked in a thick blanket of darkness. The air is cool against your skin, and your breath forms faint clouds as you sit up on your woven mat. Most of the city still sleeps, but you do not have that luxury. Not when you work in one of Rome's countless bakeries. Bread is the life of Rome, and you are one of the many hands that help feed the city. You are 15 years old, an apprentice to a baker named Publius Cotta, owner of a small but busy bakery tucked into a crowded neighborhood near the Subura district. The building is made of thick stone, sturdy enough to hold the heavy milling equipment and the massive brick oven that burns day and night. You roll up your simple woolen tunic and wash your face with cold water from a clay basin. There is no time for a proper meal. Today, like every day, your labor begins while stars still hang in the sky. You slip quietly outside, careful not to disturb the others who share the cramped room in your insula. The stairs creak beneath your feet as you descend. You step into the street and inhale deeply. The city is strangely peaceful in these early hours, when the rowdiest taverns have finally emptied and the morning vendors have not yet set up their stalls. A lone oil lamp flickers beside a doorway. Somewhere, a dog rummages through discarded scraps. The faint echo of distant voices comes from a tavern where the night refuses to end. But mostly, there is silence. You begin your walk to the bakery, feet tracing a path you know intimately, down a narrow alley, across a small courtyard where broken pottery pieces gather near a public fountain, and finally along a gently sloping street where the smell of smoke thickens in the air. Soon, you see the bakery's familiar shape, an open entrance facing the street, the counters still empty, the woven baskets waiting to be filled with freshly baked loaves. Publius is already inside. He is a broad-shouldered man in his mid-40s, balding, his forearms thick with muscle from years of kneading dough. His tunic is already dusted heavily with flour. A short, well-kept beard covers his stern jawline. "You're late," he grumbles, though you know you are not. He simply expects more than punctuality. He expects devotion. You nod apologetically, knowing argument is pointless. In truth, you admire him. He works harder than any man you know, and despite the constant pressure of his trade, he carries himself with the dignity of someone who understands the importance of his role. Without bread, Rome would fall. Publius gestures toward the milling room. "Get the mule ready." You hurry toward the back of the bakery where the flour mill sits, an enormous grinding stone turned by a patient, weary-eyed mule named Taurus. You stroke the mule's neck gently, whispering a soft greeting. The animal steps forward obediently into position between the wooden beams of the mill. The grinding begins. A low rumble fills the room as Taurus pushes forward, turning the heavy millstone. Wheat grains from giant storage jars funnel slowly into the center of the stone, crushing into a coarse, pale flour that spills into shallow baskets beneath. Flour coats the air, clinging to your eyelashes and tickling your nose. You try not to sneeze. If you do, Publius will hear it and scold you for wasting flour. Every grain counts. Rome depends on this flour. Millions of loaves are baked every day, so many that the grain economy defines much of Roman politics. Emperors have fallen when the grain supply faltered, and riots have erupted in these same narrow streets over the cost of a loaf of bread. You are not just preparing food. You are feeding an empire. Hours pass before the first hint of sunrise creeps over the rooftops. The sky glows pale blue, and the street outside begins to awaken. The grinding is nearly finished, and now comes the next stage, mixing and kneading the dough. Publius and two other workers, older apprentices named Severus and Livius, have already begun. You join them at the large wooden table, plunging your hands into the cool mixture of flour, yeast, water, and a pinch of salt. The dough is heavy and stubborn. You knead, fold, press, turn. The rhythm becomes mindless after a while. Your arms ache, your shoulders tighten, and flour coats your skin until you resemble a ghost. Publius moves down the line, occasionally correcting posture or adjusting technique. Bread is simple only to those who have never made it. A good loaf requires patience. You steal a glance toward the immense brick oven on the far side of the room. Already, Severus has begun feeding firewood into its wide mouth. You feel the heat from here, a wave of warmth rolling over your face. By midday, the bakery will be sweltering, the air thick with heat and smoke and the scent of rising dough. You try to focus on the act of kneading, but your mind drifts. You think of the customers who will arrive later: merchants, housewives, slaves sent by their masters, perhaps even a legionary or two. They will exchange coins for bread without a single thought for the hours of labor that shaped it. You wonder if anyone truly understands the work behind each bite. Once the dough is ready, you shape it into round loaves. Each one must be marked with a stamp, a wooden seal pressed firmly into the dough to show which bakery produced it. This is not decoration. Stamps protect bakers against accusations of cheating the weight or using poor quality grain. The city officials can track every loaf back to its source. After stamping, the loaves are slid into the oven using long wooden paddles. The flames flicker as the dough disappears inside, the transformation from raw paste to sustenance beginning in silence. You wipe sweat from your brow and return to the milling room to give Taurus a well-deserved rest. The mule lowers his head, grateful for a drink of water. You pat his side gently. He, too, is a silent worker in this empire. When you return to the front room, the bakery is fully awake. The first customers have arrived, impatient and hungry. A slave woman holding a small basket waits at the counter, eyes fixed on the oven. Publius hands her 2 steaming loaves and accepts coins quickly, barely glancing at her before moving on to the next in line. The rhythm accelerates. Loaves in, loaves out, coins clattering, voices rising. By sunrise, the crowd expands into the street. Children push through the line, clutching copper coins given to them by their mothers. Men shout over one another to secure the freshest loaves. A wealthy matron arrives in a litter, refusing to step onto the dusty street, sending her servant to the counter instead. Your hands move without thinking, lifting loaves, counting coins, wiping sweat. The smell of warm bread fills your lungs, comforting and overwhelming all at once. Bread is more than food. It is survival. As the morning rush continues, 2 soldiers enter, their armor clinking with each step. They are sent by the Annona, the state-controlled grain distribution program. One soldier carries a wax tablet listing local bakeries. The other inspects the stamps on the loaves. Your heart pounds. Officials are always searching for violations. Loaves too small, dough too light, stamps unclear. Any suspicion could mean fines, jail time, or worse. The grain supply is a matter of public order. Tampering with bread is tampering with Rome itself. Publius stands proudly, arms crossed over his flour-coated chest. He knows his work is good. The soldiers inspect, nod, and leave without a word. You exhale slowly. The customers continue to flow. Hours pass. Loaves fill baskets and vanish just as quickly. Coins pile up on the counter. The fire roars nonstop. Sweat trickles into your eyes. Your muscles burn from kneading and lifting. Yet the work must continue. By midday, the bakery floor is dusted white with flour and ash. The heat is stifling. You feel dizzy at times, but you push through it. Apprentices do not show weakness, not in front of the master, not in front of customers. When the rush finally slows, you sneak a small bite from a loaf that cracked in the oven and cannot be sold. The bread is crisp on the outside, soft inside, still steaming. Hunger makes anything taste divine. You close your eyes briefly, savoring the rare moment of stillness. But rest is fleeting. Clean the counters. Publius orders, voice firm but not unkind. We start on the next batch soon. The city eats again at sundown, and tomorrow, and every day after that. This is the life of a baker's apprentice. No cheering crowds, no applause, just fire, dough, sweat, and exhaustion. Hours before dawn, long after dusk. 2 ovens a day, thousands of loaves each week. Rome's greatness depends on countless hands like yours, hands that knead silently in the shadows, far from the glimmer of marble and gold. You look at your flour-covered fingers, flexing them slowly. They are not elegant or clean. They are tools of survival. Publius steps beside you, wiping his brow. "It's good work," he says, not looking directly at you. "Honest work. Do it well, and you'll always have a place in this city." You nod, though part of you wonders if there is more to life than this. You glance again at the oven. Flames curl upward inside, consuming each new log. The heat radiates outward in waves, endless, demanding, powerful. The fire is like Rome itself, always hungry,